Hello, good morning. It is Thursday, and I'm recording the ninth chapter of Baba's book of Sri Sai Satcharitra. Starting, this is the third time I'm starting. I hope I can finish it. I hope there are no more interruptions. Om Sai Ram. The chapter's name is Consequences of Disobeying Baba. Baba's Alms Collection and Panchasuna and Other Sins. Stories of a Devotee, Tarkat. My obeisance to Sri Ganesha, to Sri Saraswati and Sri Guru Maharaj, to the family deity, to Sri Sita Ramchandra, and my most humble obeisance I bow in reverence to the most venerable Guru, Sri Sainath. Now to continue from the stories from the previous chapter, I shall describe how devotees suffered if they returned to their respective homes without Baba permitting them to do so. Similarly, about Baba's practices of collecting alms, which he followed till the end of his life to avert Panchasuna and other sins only for the benefit of his devotees. And also how Sai pervades this whole universe, right from the Brahma to all the inanimate objects. That Sai himself, by his grace, impresses upon us that God dwells in all beings. Hence, O my listeners, I entreat your full attention while listening. For when these sacred stories are heard with reverence, you will attain your will. There is one special characteristic of the pilgrimage to Shirdi. If a pilgrim returns home without asking Baba's permission, he invites only trouble for himself. Believe me. Do listen to the story, they are very interesting. But once such permission is granted, he cannot stay even a moment longer in Shirdi. Should he persist enough, he would bring trouble upon himself. All have experienced this already. Those who disobey Baba's orders had to face a great many difficulties on the way. Many were robbed by thieves, an experience which they remembered all their lives. Those who started out on an empty stomach in a hurry, despite being told to have their meal before leaving, not only missed the train but also were wearied out by hunger and exasperation, as many devotees have seen for themselves. Patil Tatya Kote once wanted to go to Kopargaon for the weekly market and so came to the mosque. The Tonga was kept waiting outside. He had Baba's darshan, and as if to take Baba's permission, he in fact only bowed at Baba's feet to take his leave. Time and again would the devotees avoid or put off taking his permission. But Baba knew the good times and the bad. Seeing Tatya's impatience to go, he said, "Just wait a minute. Let the marketing be. It can be done later. Do not go outside the village." Yet, on seeing Tatya's great insistence, he added, do take Sharma with you. Oh, where is the need for Sharma? Thought Tatya to himself. And disregarding Baba's words, he went and sat in the Tonga to go to the market. Of the two horses of the Tonga, one was swift footed and had cost 300 rupees. As they approached south, we hear a village 3 kilometers from Shirdi. The horse began to gallop ever so fast, becoming wild and wayward. By the way, I'm saying Tanga and it is spelled as Tonga. You can say either way, but in Marathi it's called Tanga, so I'm calling it as Tanga. So, yeah. Uh, Please excuse me. The horse that had never known the whip and was accustomed to make his way to the market in no time, tripped and fell, giving a sudden violent jolt to the Tanga, spraining Tatya's loins sorely as a result. Alas, what marketing and what shopping! Tatya at once remembered Sai, his mother. Had I but heeded Sai's words, this mishap would have been averted, he thought regretfully. Now, what has happened has happened, nothing can be done. On another occasion, a similar thing happened. This time, Tatya was all set to go to a place called Kolhar, Horses were harnessed to the tanga, and as he came all ready to ask permission, he just bowed down at Baba's feet. I'll be back in no time, he said. Although he had not obtained Baba's clear consent, Tatya set out. But now just listen to what happened. Already the tanga was small and lightweight, in that the horses just ran unbridled and wild and would not stop even at the cavities and pits. The life, Tatya's life stood in imminent peril. In peril. But Sai's graves saved him. The tanga banged into the babul tree, and it was well that it broke down there, for it averted further disaster. Similarly, once a highly placed English gentleman from Bombay came to Baba's darshan with some definite purpose in mind. In those days, Bombay, it was called Bombay, and now you can call it Mumbai. Well, he carried a recommendation from Chandorkar in a letter which had been addressed to Madhav Rao. He asked for a tent to stay and was quite comfortable in it. Everyone knew well how impossible it was for anyone to climb up the steps of that mosque and take Baba's darshan, and to hear it, and to his heart content against Baba's wishes. 3 times did the gentleman make an attempt to climb the mosque, but it was all fruitless. This visitor was greatly disheartened. In his innermost heart, he had wished to go up to the mosque and make obeisance to Baba on bended knees, kiss his hand, and sit for a while. Such indeed was his wish, but Baba would not allow him to come up and sit near him at that time in the mosque. Baba wanted him to be in the Sabha Mandap with everyone to sit and take darshan from that place itself, if he so desired. But he definitely did not want him to come up. So he got up to go and came to the courtyard to take leave before returning home. You can go tomorrow, Baba said to him. Why all this hurry? People around were already trying to persuade him, entreating him in many ways not to go, telling him how those who went without taking permission regretted it greatly. But nobody can prevail against the predestined. He was not convinced and set out without permission, only to face troubles and tribulations on the way. Initially, the tanga, ran smoothly enough, but afterwards the horses went off track. And hardly had they gone past Saul Vihir, that is the village what is 3 kilometers away from Shirdi, when all of a sudden a bicycle crossed the path. See, in those days they didn't have traffic, but there comes a bicycle. Uh, the gentleman was sitting at the back while in the front the horses ran amok, startled by the sudden interruption. The gentleman was knocked off his balance and fell flat across the road. With enormous effort, the tanga was stopped. The man had gone sliding down, but was lifted up and seated in the tonga. And then the tonga proceeded on its way. I'm back to Tonga, as it says in the book. Alas, Shirdi remained on one side, Bombay on the other. Instead, it was to a hospital in Kopargaon that the tonga drove to. Tormented by remorse, suffering as an expiation of the sin of disobeying Baba, the gentleman had to spend some days in the hospital. People had innumerable such experiences. As a result, they began to have doubts and apprehensions on such occasions and started obeying Baba's orders. No one dared to disobey. Sometimes a wheel came off the carriage. At other times, the horses were tired out, trains were missed, people starved, and so many were left mourning and fretting with frustration. And those who obeyed his command always caught the train, sometimes even running out of its schedule, and had a pleasant, comfortable journey which they remembered all their lives. Should anyone have a doubt as to why Baba preferred the practice of collecting alms and following it for years together, listen now to this explanation. Before I go, Remember, Baba knew everything that was going to happen before, after, and in the future. So, like in the past, he knew what had happened, what is going to happen, what's happening. So, mm, if he didn't give you his permission to go, you knew that you should know that there's a reason behind it. Actually, if one considers Baba's lifestyle and conduct as a whole, one will realize that collecting of alms was most befitting, for by doing so he gave an opportunity to people to perform the duty of an householder, all for their own good, which brought them great satisfaction. It is a duty steadfast in his faith, and who surrenders everything, body, speech, and mind and wealth at his feet, who is dear to Sai. In Grihasthashram, that is the householder, the second of the four stages of the ashramas. So there are four stages. If I remember, it's where once you're a child, and then you're a householder, and then I think you leave for the forest, and then you become a sannyasi. Uh, so when you're a child, you're a brahmachari basically, because you're celibate. And I'll go into more later on, when I actually get the correct information. If, however, the householder partakes of the food without making such an offering, then he has to perform the Chandrayana ritual for the purification of his speech, mind, and action, according to the Shastras. Shastras are the holy books of the Hindus. Sannyasins and brahmacharis are forbidden to cook food. If they start doing it, they too will most certainly be saddled with the Chandrayana ritual. Hence, the Shastras have entrusted the responsibility of feeding them to the householders. Sannyasins never take up any occupation to satisfy their hunger. Baba was not a householder, nor was he in the Vanaprastha stage, but he was a celibate, and uh, he was a celibate who had renounced the world from childhood. For such a one, then subsisting on collected alms was most fitting. He who regarded the whole universe as his home knows for certain that he himself is Vasudeva and Vishwambara, all pervading, and that he is the everlasting Brahman. Brahman is all, like, it's in the Upanishads. If you read the Upanishads, they always talk about Brahman. So is the God of the whole, everyone. So the one source, and that one source is called Brahman. One such member of the world family has the true perfect right to the food collected by the alms. As for all others, just look at the vulgar display and the mockery they have made of this practice. First, a man should give up the desire for a son, and then the desire for wealth, and also for fame, for honor in the world. He who is free from these threefold desires can alone think of subsisting on alms. So, like, desire for children, family, for honor, like, yeah. So, that person is known as a sannyasin, yeah. Also, the verses, or else the verses of Tukoba Maharaj, where he says it is a disgraceful existing to resort to the begging bowl, will become meaningless and futile. The young and the old, and the great and the small, all knew well that a great Siddha Sai Samartha was. What a great Siddha Sai Samartha was. It is we who are always bound by our worldly hopes and desires, and are not steadfast in our devotion to his holy feet. The five great sacrificial offerings, without which a householder was forbidden by the Shastras to take his meal, Sai himself performed every day in Shirdi, thereby sanctifying the food prepared. Every day he would go to 5 houses for alms to remind the householders of their duty to offer food first to a guest, Fortunate indeed were those who learned this lesson. Sitting in their own homes, after taking 5 great sacrificial offerings, those who partake of the remaining food will have their great 5 sins, that's a Panchasuna, which are so difficult to understand and commit, quite unknowingly destroyed altogether. Among the people, these Panchasuna was known as the 5 great sins of Kandani, Chuli, Peshani, Udkumbi, and Marjani. When the stone mortar is fed with food grain, which is then pounded with the pestle to remove the chaff and bran from it, little creatures are killed unknowingly. Until it goes through this entire process, the grain will not get cooked, and hence is the first sin of the Panchasuna, and it is called Kandani. When the wood is kindled in the fireplace to cook the food, there too living beings are destroyed quite unknowingly. This is called the second sin, the Chuli. Taking a quern or a hand mill, and the grain is ground to, a quern is, yeah, the hand mill where you put the grain, and then grain is ground to flour. Once again, innumerable little things, little beings are crushed unawares. This sin is called Peshani. When in a pitcher of water is taken from the well or in a tank or a lake, or when men and women wash their clothes, again numerous creatures die. In order to clean the pitchers, then when they are scrubbed or washed with hand, with mud or ash, or now we use soap, so or detergent or what, like, yeah, living beings are unintentionally killed. This is the fourth sin called Udukumbi. And the living creatures that they're talking about in this book, what Baba is saying is the bacteria that live on our body, the creatures we don't see, and also little, uh, yeah, anything, because we don't see. If you see under the microscope, like, there are so many living creatures on our body and in the food, everything, water. So similarly, when bathing with hot or cold water, sprinkling the cow dung water for cleaning the floors, the great destruction of the life that takes place is called Marjani. To free himself from 5 great sins, a householder has to make 5 great sacrificial offerings. Once these sins are warded off, thus the householders will attain self purification. It is by the power of self purification that pure sacred knowledge is attained, and after such knowledge, this fortunate ones attain salvation, which is everlasting. When in describing science practices in collecting alms, the book has become expansive. But now listen to a true story in this connection, and then we shall end this chapter. Whatever you send for Baba, with whosoever you send it, provided it is sent with sincere, heartfelt love, Baba will ask for it without fail, even if the bearer of that small offering forgets. Be it then a simple offering of bhakri and vegetable, or so, or be it sweet meat like pedha, you know. Who doesn't like pedha? I love. Made from milk and sugar, so long as it was offered with loving devotion. It did not matter. And oh, how Sai's heart overflowed with love when he met such unswerving faith. This is a story of one such loving devotee. Listen to which you will be filled with joy. If any devotee failed to carry out a responsibility undertaken by him, Sai himself guided him to the path of his duty. And so gentle and sweet was his manner of instruction that at proper time he would awaken the devotee to his duty. Blessed are those fortunate ones who have themselves experienced this. This happiness, their happiness is beyond all description. One of the Sai's great devotees was by name Ramchandra, his father Atma Ram. and his surname Tarkhad, who had taken refuge in Sai, the abode of peace. But he was always called Baba Saheb Tarkad. It is about him that we shall narrate a story, there being no better reason for this narration. Oh, how delightful it was to listen to Tarkad when his heart was overflowing with Sai's love. He would begin to describe his own experiences, and when he narrated one after the other with gestures and expressions of deep feeling, the novel experiences that he had had at every step, oh, what a great, grand devotion it revealed. Incomparable was his love, was incomparable as his love was. Baba Sahib had installed a drawing of Sai in a beautiful sandalwood shrine at home for the purpose of worship every morning, noon, and evening. Tarkhad was very fortunate in having a son who was equally devoted to Sai. So much so that without offering Naivedya, that's food offering to Sai, he would never touch food himself. Every morning after taking his bath, he used to offer puja to Baba's picture with all his heart and soul and body, which ritual he ended with offering Naivedya. Even as he continued this regular practice untiringly, all his efforts bore fruit in the excellent, most unique experience that he had. His mother, who was a great devotee of Sai, was eager to go to Shirdi, and the Baba felt that the son should be with her in the journey. She wished to go to Shirdi, take Sri Sai's darshan, spend a few days, and serve Sai in person. Although such was father's wish, the son did not really want to go, for he was worried as to who would regularly perform the puja in the house in his absence. The father was a Prarthana Samajist who did not believe in ritualistic idol worship. Would it be proper to trouble him with puja was his son's doubt. Yet, knowing his secret wish, the son was ready to go and just listen to what he very lovingly entreated his father. Unless I promise that nobody in the house will take food without first offering Naivedya to Sai, I certainly cannot go. The father was already aware of the son's vow. Go, I will offer the Naivedya regularly. You may rest assured, he said. Without first offering Naivedyas to Sai, none will take food. Trust my word and have no doubts. Go with an easy mind. On getting such an assurance, the boy went to Shirdi. As the next day dawned, Tarkad himself performed the puja. On that, right at the beginning of the puja, Baba Sahib Tarkad prostrated before Sai's picture and prayed, Baba, let my service of performing puja to you be the same as that of my son. Let it not be a mechanical exercise at my hands, but let true love spring in my heart while performing it. Every early morning before sunrise, which is the most perfect time for worship, Tarkad would begin the puja with this prayer every day and offer Naivedya at the end. This continued without break and offered a piece of sugar candy by way of Naivedya. Until one day there was a lapse in this daily routine. His mind preoccupied with business matters, one day Tarkad did not remember the Naivedya. Everyone had their meal without making the food offering to Sai. Tarkat was a chief officer in charge of a well known textile mill and had to go out every morning for his work. Later in the afternoon, when he returned, he was served at meal time the prasad of sugar candy offering to Sai in the morning. Such was the daily routine. When one day he forgot to offer sugar candy as naivedya and consequently had no prasad at lunch, it was a cook who used to serve the remaining sugar candy on his plate every day when he sat down to his meal, that itself serving as purification of the food. But on that day, for some reason, he was in a hurry while performing puja and offering of naivedya was forgotten. So the prasad too was not served as every day. At once, Tarkat got up from the meal, full of remorse, prostrating before Sai's picture, and said with tearful eyes, Baba, what is this Maya of yours? How did you stupefy my mind so? Really, it was just a mechanical exercise that you made me perform. But now please grant me your forgiveness first. It is no mere bewilderment of mine, but a great sin that I have committed, and I am filled with remorse. Oh, it is my fault entirely, my fault, shameless am I, as I as I am. Be compassionate to me, O Maharaj. He prostrated at Baba's feet in the picture and with a heart overcome with regret and repentance said, O compassionate Maharaj, have mercy on me. So saying, he wrote a letter to the son in a helpless, wretched state of mind, saying, entreat Baba's forgiveness, say that a great sin has been committed at my hands. Pray for his mercy on one who has totally surrendered to him. With these words, invoke his compassion and pray for a assurance of forgiveness and grace on behalf of this humble servant. While this was happening in Bandra at about 200 miles away in Shirdi, the news reached instantly. Listen to what Baba said there. Here is the actual proof of Sai Maharaj's knowledge of past, present, and future. They knew no barriers of space and time. Although the boy was in Shirdi all this while, listen, O listeners, carefully to what happened when he went to pay obeisance to Baba on that same day and at that same time. As the boy came eagerly with his mother and bowed down at Baba's feet, he was quite astonished to hear what Sai said to his mother. What could I do, mother? Oh, mother, today as every day I went to Bandra, but there was no food, no rice, no gruel, nothing to eat or drink, and hungry I had to return. Just see the Rinanubandha, the ties of the past birth. Though the door was closed, I entered at my own sweet will. Who is to prevent me? The master was not at home. My intestines were groaning with hunger. But in that same instant, at the height of noon, I turned back without a morsel. On hearing these words, the son at once guessed that most probably his father forgot and missed making the food offering. He pleaded with Baba, let me go home, but Baba would hear none of it. Instead, he made him offer puja there itself. The same day, the son sent a detailed letter from Shirdi, on reading which the father's heart simply melted. The letter from Bandra reached Shirdi too. The son was amazed, his eyes too filled with tears which freely flowed down the cheek. Just see this wonderful sport of Sai. How will love not well up in the heart? Can there be such a heart of stone that will not by that will not be melted by this? It was the loving mother of this same boy who was blessed by Sai while she was once at Shirdi. And now listen to this marvelous tale. She was in the dining hall. Food was served. Everybody was about to begin when suddenly at that hour of noon, a hungry dog came to the door where the lady sat. The lady at once gave a quarter of the bhakri from her plate to the dog. But at the same time, there also came a hungry pig, smeared all over with mud, whom too she fed the bhakri. It all happened so naturally that the lady soon forgot about it. But in the afternoon, Baba himself brought up the subject. In the afternoon, after lunch, the lady came up to the mosque as usual and sat down at some distance. Baba said to her affectionately, you fed me today with all the food, my stomach is full, almost to the throat. I was actually I was suffering acutely from hunger, but you appease me by giving me food. This is what you should always do, for truly this alone will stand you in good stead. Let me read again. For truly this alone will stand you in good stead. It can never be that sitting here in the mosque I would speak such an untruth. Always have such compassion. First feed those who are hungry, then eat yourself. Preserve this truth carefully in your heart. The lady could not understand what Sai Samartha was saying. What could he mean? For his words are never without significance. So she said, "How is it possible that I have given you food? I myself depend on others and eat whatever I get after paying a price for it. After eating the bakri given to me lovingly, I am satiated most truly. Nay, I am still belching with that satiation. When you sat down to lunch, you saw the hungry dog with an empty stomach who came to the door. Know that I am one with him. And also the pig that you saw suffering from the pangs of hunger, smeared all over with mud. I am one with him too." As she heard Baba's words, the lady was quite astonished in her mind. So many dogs, pigs, cats roam around. Is Baba one with them all? Sometimes I'm a dog, and sometimes I'm a pig, sometimes I'm a cow, sometimes a cat, and sometimes an ant, a fly, an aquatic creature. In such various forms do I move about in this world. Know that I like only him who sees me in all living things, in all living beings. So give up the sense of differentiation. This is the way to worship me. These were not just words, they were the purest nectar. Listening to them, the lady was so choked with emotion. A lump rose in her throat and her eyes filled with joy. There is another sweet tale about this lady's loving devotion, which is also a mark of Sai's oneness with his devotees. Once Purandare, another devotee, set out for Shirdi with his wife and children. This lady, Mrs. Tarkar, very lovingly sent him with him some brinjals for Baba. She requested Purandare's wife to prepare bharit, that is a dressing, the roasted brinjal with seasoning, for Baba, with one brinjal and with the other to slice and fry it crisply with seasoning called kachria. I don't know. And kach, kachria. Serve a liberal helping thereof to Baba. "All right," she said, as she took the brinjal. On reaching Shirdi, she took the bharit to serve to Baba at lunchtime after the arti. As usual, she offered the naivedya, went away, leaving the plate of food for Baba. After collecting together everybody's naivedya, Baba sat down to the meal. Sorry. When he when he tasted when he tasted the bharit, everyone thought that he found it delicious. So that then he felt like having fried brinjal slices. For he said, "Bring them now, just now." Excuse me. The message went to Radha Krishna Bai at once that Baba wished to have fried brinjal slices and was waiting for them to begin his lunch. They were at a loss what to do. This was not the season for brinjals. Then how can a dish be prepared? A frantic search for Purandare's wife because of the bharit she had served. For it was in the plate that she had brought that bharit was served. So maybe in her baggage there are some more brinjals, they thought. Hence, when she was asked, the mystery behind the sudden desire for fried brinjal slices was solved, and everybody understood why Baba had such a great love for them. The lady explained that she made bharit out of one brinjal and served it in the afternoon, and thought she would fry the slices of the other later, which she had already sliced for that purpose. Later on, when everyone came to know by and by the story, of the of the brinjals right from the beginning, they were amazed to see Sai's all pervasiveness. On one such On another occasion, in the month of December in the year 1915, this same lady, Mrs. Tarkard, sent a peda, the sweet meat made with milk and sugar, for Baba with great affection. Balaram Mankar had passed away, and his son was going to go to Shirdi for performing the obsequies, the and that and come and came to Tarkar to tell him. He came to Tarkar to say that he was going to Shirdi, so Tarkar's wife wanted to send with him something for Baba. As she searched in the house, there was nothing to send, just one peda, that too had been already offered as Nevedya, but the boy was in a hurry to leave. Moreover, the boy was in mourning. The one peda in the house was already used as Naivedya. She sent the same with him to offer to Sai, saying that there is nothing else. So now take this peda and offer with love. Sai will eat it with relish. Govindji, Mankar's son, took the peda with him. But when he went for Baba's darshan, it was forgotten at his lodging. Baba was patient with him. Later in the afternoon, the boy came again in Sai's coat, but as before, he forgot again and came to the mosque empty handed. Baba tried asking him, "What have you brought for me?" And then he replied, "Nothing." And then he reminded him gently, "Has no one given you anything for me?" "No," he said. Then Sai Samarth asked him directly, "My boy, did not mother very lovingly send with you some sweets for me when you left home?" It was only then he remembered. And oh, he ever felt so ashamed of himself. How could he have forgotten it? His head hung in shame. He prayed for forgiveness, and touching Baba's feet, he set out at once. Running, he went to the lodging, brought the peda, offered it to Sai. The moment it came in hand, Baba at once put it in his mouth and gratified the mother's feelings. It is thus that this Sai, the great Mahatma, glorifies glorifies love and devotion by giving each devotee the experience according to his faith. Another significance that emerges from the story is that one should always see God in all living creatures. This is also recognized by the Shastras. This is the demonstrated conclusion here. Now, in listening to the next chapter, you will come to know how Baba lived, where, at which place he slept, etc. Listen to it attentively. Hemant Pant surrenders at Sai's feet. The listener should reflect with reverence on the stories narrated, contemplate on them, for it will be beneficial to them. We'll be to all. Here ends the ninth chapter of Sri Sai Samartha called Consequences of Disobeying Baba, Baba's Alms Collection, and Panchasuna and other sins, stories of the devotee Tarkad as inspired by the saints and are virtuous and composed by his devotee Himmatpan. Om Shri Sai Chal. Om Shri Sai Ram. Om Sai Shri Sai Jai Jai.